Hi everyone. So in this video we are going to tackle the problem that we encountered last time about the test cases that were actually failing, although or I didn't have real an idea on what was actually going on. So I created a dedicated issue to it, like remove flakiness of the UI browse tests. As a developer, I want to give me deterministic results on the outcome of the test, independent on how often I run the test, so that I can rely on my test suite to be stable and gain trust in the accuracy of the test itself. So I think this is actually very important, to not have any kind of flakiness in your test, in particular if you don't have, we are not running end-to-end tests or something. So therefore it should actually not happen that these tests are actually flaky. And as I said, I wanted to do a dedicated video about it in order to try to understand the problem and where this is originating from. Okay, so let's take a look into our application. And so when we run this test here, basically all tests in our directory, then we can see that a couple of tests are failing, and I will just exclude the other ones here. So these browse test screens, and so on the error message that we have already seen last time is basically that we that there's a customer or a product category. Actually, this is already interesting that all of them share the same characteristics, and we expected to be a particular customer or product, and then it actually turned out to be a different instance. So, and this happens apparently in all times when we run this test here. So when we first interact with the table, like start the browser, the product browse, for example, and then select a particular product, and then open the screen and verify that the product entity of the editor is actually the one that we selected before. So the interesting aspect of that is that if I run this here in isolation, then this does not happen. So this means that there's, most likely, so I can, run that multiple times, and hopefully it should just be fine. So this means that this is one other example of tests that interact with each other in some form or another. And right now I don't yet understand why this happens, but we will probably figure it out in a couple of minutes. So here you see that this is actually running, and let me just run this here once again, because I tried it before, and I also saw that sometimes all the tests are actually running all of them. Oftentimes it happens like this, but sometimes it's also the case that like every 35 tests that we currently have are actually running and not failing at all. So for example here, now we have actually 35 tests passed. So this makes that very problematic to even debug, because you can't really see when this happens, so it's not really not deterministic in this sense. And so I think what we can do is to create a breakpoint here, just take a look on basically verify what happens here. So for that matter, I will just create a variable here, and this is, let's call it the edited entity, or the edited product. And so when we are here, this means that in our debugger we basically have two variables that we can basically visually compare and see when our test is actually failing. So I will now run this test in the debug mode once again, but I will continue to run all the tests, because we have seen that if we run the test in isolation, then it actually doesn't happen. And Okay, so now we have here two objects. First of all, it's first product, and then secondly, it's edited product. So the two variables that we have created here and that we basically want to compare. And as you can see, this is, so basically we are lucky because this means here you can see from the new and the detached that we are actually running in this case where this is not the same. So this assertion will actually fail. And when we open up the information here, then we can see, so this is our product, first product that we created here, food product, sorry. And then this edited product is has a name null and is of, it's new, it's not even persisted in the database. So, and I think what we can take a look at is first of all how our data looks like in the database. So if I now go load product and just give me a list of all products, then there is only one in place. So this is even more interesting now, because this means we still don't have the answer that it's actually two of them or something. So what this could mean is that basically, so what we see here is that it interacts with other test cases. So, and we have a situation where the product screen actually has a new entity. So this means that it has to be opened in a way where we are in the create mode basically in order to create a new one, because only then this new attribute is set here and there's no data in it. So one other thing that we can think about is if we use our screens API and get the open screens, and perhaps we can take a look at all open screens that we currently have. So right now I would expect that there are two, just from understanding, because this means here we first open the product browse and then afterwards we open the product edit. So if we now get active screens and take a look, okay, so then you see here that we have a lot of screens open, and this probably is already the error, because what this means is that actually, so let's take a look at here. So here we have a product editor, and then if we, for example, go to edit entity here, this seems to be a new one. Then if we take a look at this one, we also have a new one because it's still of type new. And here we have the same situation. And here at the bottom, there's another one. So let's take a look. Okay, so here it's actually the right product. So, okay, so I think I know what the problem is. So, as you can see here, we have now multiple product edits entities, or the screens open, and this is probably the root cause of all the flakiness that we are currently seeing. And this also perhaps explains why this sometimes works and sometimes not, because imagine if you have these different product edit instances here, and so let's take a look on how we actually find the open screen, because this is our screen interaction model that we have here. So the way I implemented it was basically I looked through all the active screens and just filter for the ones where the screen class actually matches the screen class that we would like to have. And then we will just take the first one or else throw an exception. And then afterwards just verify if the instance is correct type, and then return the thing. So this means here, in terms of that there are multiple screens that actually fulfill this requirement, it's just random which one to pick based on the order of these active screens. So So what does it mean now? We could, so one option that we could do is, that we could pass in, for example, the product here as a second parameter and just filter for the ones where, actually the edited entity is the one that we want. But what I'm even more struggling with is to say that that we have multiple screens open, because this should actually not happen. And if you think about it, like the problem that we had with the database before, like a couple of videos ago, where we basically had a shared state between the tests in the form of the database, and then there was some new data inserted in another test, and then the second test got the problem. So here we have very much the same situation. It's just not in the database, but it's actually in the state of the of the program, where it has a lot of screens open. And so this flakiness, I think we should get rid of. So I know that there is an API. Let's take a look. I think it's called remove all or something. And if we do that, this would mean that we clean up all the screens at the very beginning. So this means, if we are now here and say screens remove all, then we will make sure that before we start our test case, all the screens are actually not present anymore. So if we run that here now, I would hope that we only have, like, if we are in the case of failing tests, then we only have 2 failing tests for the product category and for the customer browse, but not for the product anymore. Okay, so here now you see we only have 1, which is even, I think it also is just tied to this flakiness that sometimes this happens, sometimes not. But let's just run that a couple of times and see if we are actually failing on the product at all. Okay, now we have still only the customer. Yeah, okay, I think you get the idea. So I think we have, I'm not sure why this now happens, not anymore for the product category browse, but for the, we can also take a look into this. Yeah, actually we are still on the product category browse and the product category edit that we are looking for. So I'm not sure on why there is a relationship between those two. Yeah, so what does that mean now? I think if we clean up all the screens before each run for all the tests, then we actually, are on the safe side, which is a good thing anyways. And this topic that I talked about last time here was this product reference. I will still keep it in there because it's still a good idea, but probably was not actually at all related to the problem at hand. And this is something perhaps like a takeaway. Also, instead of just guessing, it's really sometimes needed to do the debugging and really nail the problem basically. So JUnit 5 also allows us to inject the screens into either our setup methods here, but I was just thinking perhaps we can even put it into our abstract class, because there you can also define some before each methods, or like setups. So I would here now remove all screens. So the name of the method actually doesn't really matter. It's only needed that we have the before each annotation here, and we will just pass in the screens, and then we will say screens remove all. So with that, now every test should be affected by that change, and Yeah, so then let's just run that a couple of times and see where this is, if this, improves the situation or not. Okay, so this already looks better. And yeah, I think the main, like takeaway from this whole effort is really to make sure that you don't have any kind of shared state between your test cases. So this might either be in a database or, in some state that lives inside of the application or inside the framework in this case. Perhaps, what could be improved is, as part of this UI test, annotation, or somehow from the framework already indicate that it's a good idea to do that. But yeah, I think this can be improved over time. For now, I think for our specific use case, we just solved this problem here. So with that, we should not have any problems anymore. And I think the reason why it happened now and not like in the very beginning is just because of the situation that the more tests you write, the more screens you open, and the more likely it actually gets that there's a difference in this order of the screens. Okay, so this means we have now actually, let's just take a look at our changes here once again. So this we can actually get rid of, and then the only thing left here is the web integration test. Okay, so okay, and with that, I think we can now complete this this topic of product stock items, and then also in the same pull request now I removed this flakiness. So I think I will run the test here in the CI system once again, but yeah, I think we have now covered not only this topic here, but also the original one. So yeah, with that, I will close it off. Thanks for watching and see you next time.